Well, hello everyone, welcome. Welcome back to Pyre on PlayFrame in a little bonus episode. We've already completed the game itself. You can see the link to the playlist down in the description if you're wanting to watch the entire playthrough. This is just a little bonus thing at the end, as I promised that I would read through that whole book of Rites, beginning to end, kind of more in order so we could get sort of a more complete, sequential understanding of its contents. I am very curious. And fortunately for me, the game's actually going to make that a lot easier for me. I'm going to enter a different new save game I've created here, because it turns out, you remember at the end last time where we unlocked something called True Nightwing mode? Well, it turns out that is basically like the extra hard expert version mode of the game that changes quite a lot of things about the play itself to make it much more of a gameplay challenge. That doesn't really matter for my purposes. The most important thing is that it also basically gives you the full unlocked Book of Rites from the very start. All pages. All of them. Which is good, because I'm not 100% confident that I had unlocked all of them. In fact, I know I didn't. But here, every single one of them should be unlocked, so we can just read through the whole dang thing. I got my book. I've got my tea. Let's do this thing. First, the foreword. A formal welcome undersigned by the 8 scribes. You, dear reader, are an exile of the downside, such as we, the 8 who wrote this Book of Rites. That you possess it and have the capacity to glean its words is testament enough to your potential. Thus, we reveal a path from this forsaken place to freedom, a homecoming in glory. The stars themselves shall be your guide. Ere the turning of the year's first solstice, seek the nearest longitude beneath the brightest of 8 as they align as shown. Arrive as a triumvirate, clad in the raiments of the Rites, bearing this book. Oblige the voice that tells you more. And I think that's the only one here on this little forward segment, so yeah. Chapter 2, Emperor's Fall, a history of Solium Mur, the first exile and the foremost of the 8 scribes. In the words of Gol Golathanian, the Master General. You know, perhaps, the thrice-cursed name of Solium Mur, the Emperor of Sar, the first exile, and my liege. This chapter concerns him and those who found him in the downside. Each of us was sent to take his life, such was the hatred for him in and around his country. Yet, we found in Solium Mur a man transformed, in body, mind, and spirit, a man deserving of much more than mercy. In time, he named us all his scribes, and he became the 8th. It is my greatest honor now to share with you his deeds. To know his story is to know the Rites. The Last Emperor. How many nations did I scour in the name of Solium Mur? How many countries fell before our spears and blades? Such questions mattered less to me with every passing victory. Our legions swelled across the land, and our dominion grew. The Emperor Solium Mur paid all this little heed. He only tended to his personal affairs. Our legions relished the autonomy. We did not know that the Emperor cared nothing for his legions, nor his people. He cared only for that which was before him. One day, he learned of such a thing as to befit his name, and vowed to seek it out. The rope collar. I knew it was a fool's errand, but my liege, he would not listen. He instead insisted to pursue a certain treasure, a celestial orb, freshly fallen from the heavens in the reaches of the downside. He would be a living legend if only he could grasp it, whispered in his ear that Kaelmer rope collar, his elder and most trusted aide. Would that I slew that man myself. His was a simple and yet brilliant ruse, to draw the Emperor farther still from his responsibilities and towards his greed. Thus did the Emperor begin an expedition into the Forsaken Lands. He insisted that he go himself. The Empire's collapse. It was not long before the Empire began to crumble. With my liege gone, his own country quickly turned upon itself. I must admit that this collapse had started long before the Emperor's disappearance. His decision to give chase after a myth but hastened the inevitable. All the while, the rope collar stood by, awaiting such a time as he could rule in my liege's stead. He would be our people's savior. His first charge was to organize a search for the missing Solium Mur. Warriors, pathfinders, and scholars heard the call and prepared to seek him out. Down the river. The Emperor Solium Mur knew naught of this, of course. His expedition yielded not the treasure he desired, but brought him closer to his country than he had ever been before. As he traveled down the river Sklorian in pursuit of greed, he found instead an inkling of shame. He saw the sunken faces of his people, heard their words for him. In time, he could not ignore it, and it proved more than he could bear. The river finally claimed him, his belongings, and his retinue. Once the people heard, I understand they cried with joy. Perhaps he ought have perished, but the mercy shown to him, I think, is what transformed him. The hunt for myrrh. My emperor lay there, bleeding and alone, stranded in a bitter land beyond the river. With fleeting consciousness, he understood the folly of his quest, and the folly of his rule over his country. Thus did he await the last embrace. It was the imp Haub that nursed him back to health, and warned him often of the dangers he would have to face. Many enemies of Myrrh would come in search for him, some under employment by the rope collar, some longing openly for cold, uncomplicated vengeance. I was one of them. I plunged into the river willingly. We needed to be sure that he was dead. I am so glad already that we're doing this, because it is all reading much more like a linear story than just reading a few little pages at a time. Really, really helps to make the history a whole lot clearer. This was a good idea. We'll see if I still feel that way after I've read who knows how many pages. The demon. Emperor Myrrh. Scarcely could I recognize him when I at last found him. A half-starved animal, horns sprouted from his head, a bestial mirror of his blackened reputation. And I, a man who conquered countries, feared my emperor then in such a way as I had never known. My charge had been to slay this man, but when I discovered him, he was already fighting for his life. The little imp Haub proved of little help against the Sisters of the Arch, whose entire lives were culminating in this instant. I was unable to watch. My heart ached with such pity for the man, and for the love I felt for him when I had served him, that I sprang to his defense. The mercy shown. The imp Haub and I, we helped to save my emperor. And when the danger did subside, my emperor Solium Mur, he said something to me, which shook me to the essence of my being. He said, "You gave your freedom, Master Golathanian, so that I may yet have mine. You too now are an exile of the downside. In all the days which I have left, I never could repay the mercy you've shown me. So, if I cannot do so in this life, then I shall do it in the next." We crossed the lands together, and together with the imp, we gained the company of those who saw in him what I did. The 8 Scribes. We found each of the others in due time, by fate, not by coincidence. The wise Lou Sklorian stood among the trees, gazing at the stars, expecting us. The wild witch, Melith, was so enthralled by my liege's utter transformation, she stayed her sorceries. Blessed-born Triesta swooped down upon us, but to warn of imminent attack. The many-maned Jomur thus intervened and shared with us his humor and his hunt. Even the Underking Oris himself sought out an audience with us. Thus we became the 8, and journeyed on together. The Scribes' Deeds. I wish to be remembered not for boastfulness. Thus, I refrain from detailing our exploits across the land, save to say that they were numerous. Know that only through our combined strength of arms and wit did we withstand this savage land. Such were the monstrous dangers that it posed. I came to see that all the terrors which I heard at bedside in my youth were based entirely in fact. So great they were, they blotted out the sky. Such was the evil that we vanquished, that the remnants of it yet shine under the stars. And in the end, it was the stars which guided us toward our truest calling. The Freedom Pact. We rid the land of an impending doom, but faced another of its kind, for we knew that we were trapped. Yet, for each danger which we faced, for every failed ambush by the Arch, we met with gentle souls and kindred spirits in the downside, who deserved more than to fade from memory within this land. It was then that the stars themselves showed us the way, delineating a great voyage across the sea. Near broken we became, but then, at last, a moonlit vision, that of the Rites, the Rites. Thus shall they say of us, The 8 scribes gave their freedom so that we may yet have ours. And thus concludes Chapter 1. So, on to Chapter 2, Living in Exile, Observations and Ruminations on Surviving the Downside. In the words of Jomur Minimane, the Alpha Chief. Once I too roamed free. I remember well those days in which I was called chief. I traveled all the world over on my 4 good paws, and I was well adored. I wanted to grow stronger. Here, at last, I have. I shall not mince my words. This place shall either harden you or kill you. It shall haunt you with old memories. You share the exile's plight. My charge is to alleviate the sting of it for you a little bit, and to prolong your stay, but only for as long as needed. Your charge is to return. We call this place the Downside for a reason, but in time, here you can learn to eat, to seek out shelter, and to find a certain beauty in unlikely places. Downside Travels. You cannot survive the downside if you cannot get around. Howlers shall descend on you, or tempests shall shear you to pieces. That is just the way of it. Traveling through the environs is no simple feat. Consider yourself blessed if you were born a cur. If not, however, you shall have to find a means to cross these lands without the benefit of 4 strong paws. Glorian believes this untamed land can be traversed through means unnatural. I thought at first that he meant sorcery, but he suggests invention. He speculates that carriages could cross this land by harnessing its fury. A wild thought. In my case, my paws shall suffice. Downside Climate. I know of no polite way to describe the climate here. It oppresses every living thing, except perhaps the native flora in a few specific areas. Once more, the recommended course is to keep moving. Moving keeps you warm when it is cold, or when it is very hot, you use what strength you can to move to somewhere you can think and breathe. The weather in the downside seems intrinsic to the different regions, which my good friend Molten Malith shall describe. Shelter can be difficult to find, and you cannot stay in it for very long. Perhaps, however, shelter can accompany you rather than constrain you. Downside Dining. How to sustain oneself with food and drink in such a place as this. The less said of it, the better. Do not complain, observe, and above all, keep moving. Sources of sustenance avail themselves to those with keener sense. In warmer climates, search the ground at break of day for subterraneans. In colder places, dig for them. Give them purpose. Drinking pools are rare, but moisture in abundance outside of the sandfolds. Some is poisonous. Take only what you need. The downside limits any opportunity for excess, but it provides enough amenities to meet the needs of life. One who understands it cannot help but feel a sense of gratitude. Downside Diseases. Ailments in the downside often give no warning when they strike. Those who keep moving and make no attempt to settle, they reduce their risks. The afflictions come in multiple varieties. In the bogs of flagging hands, a pallor tends to sink into the skin and then into the mind. The nauseating sea of Solus north of there is difficult for some to tolerate. Very hot or very cold environs bring their own specific side effects. My coat is not as lustrous now. My fangs are long. Like all aspects of the downside, all these ailments share a purpose: to test your body, mind, and spirit. They only appear to harm. Accept them, surpass them, move on. Foraged Findings. There is a simple pleasure to be found in foraging about this place. Easy for a cur to say, of course. Though barren-looking to the naked eye, the downside has its share of semi-hidden treasures waiting to be found. It was a nose for treasure, after all, which drew us here. Certain types of artifacts found in this place would fetch a reasonable sum in soul, whether because they shine with inner light or due to other special properties. I have observed that stardust, freshly fallen from the heavens, sometimes glimmers in the afternoons. I have not found a use for it as yet, although because it brings me faith, perhaps I have indeed. Slug markets. There are natives in this land with some capacity for thought and oddly keen instinct for the mercantile. Suspicious creatures, but not disagreeable entirely. From time to time, we make exchange with them. They lust for coins for the imperial soul, though why they do not say. We speculate it is a delicacy. It serves us little purpose here, whilst their slug market wares are sometimes valuable. The creatures appear drawn to places where the heavens shine the brightest, perhaps because they know we are as well. What they want exactly is unclear. We taught them of our lands, yet they remain preoccupied with simpler things. Indigenous Imps. Special mention must be given to the Downside's most prolific native creature, which we call the Imp. With all respect to our comrade Haub, an imp himself, possessing of extraordinary intellect, most imps are driven by the simplest impulses: to eat, to drink, to procreate, to move, and to survive. These creatures, then, are symbols of this place. They're far more resilient than they seem. Though wild by their nature, they, like all of us, can learn. Haub insists that imps are willing to be put to work. Like other aspects of the Downside, they wish more than to exist, but to exist with purpose. Downside Talismans. Survival often is conflated with the physical. When we think of survival, we assume the need to sustain our bodies or improve our bodies. The strong survive. But, and take it from an Alpha Chief, there are different kinds of strength. The spirit is what drives us. By comparison, the body's impulses are weak. Here in the Downside, faith is found in limited supply. Trinkets and mere baubles that would barely fetch a price in our homeland, here are talismans. Seek talismans that mean something to you. Hold on to one that you hold dear. It shall reward you with reminders of your faith, your power, and your potential. And that is the end of Chapter 2. Next, Chapter 3, Forsaken Lands, concerning the races and ethnic groups displaced to and indigenous to the Downside. In the words of Molten Malith, the Wild Witch. Years upon long years we spent distilling life essence from many things, which all once writhed under the auspices of their mortality, which we ourselves cut short. In this we have no regrets, for we learned much, and so we think did they. We earned the title Witch and were forced to flee into the Downside. Here we encountered Solium Mur, and soon we gained an understanding of each other. He bade us circumnavigate these lands and catalog our findings. We felt a strong desire to expose the secrets of this land. He wished to yield benefit to those who followed in our wake. Indulge us both, then. The Downside Prairie. The Downside is connected to our realm via a single artery, the river named for our prestigious sap colleague, Luz Glorian. That river gushes into seeming nothingness. That seeming nothingness turns out, of course, to be the Downside. Its existence undermines thousands of years of thought about the composition of our world. The Downside's southern edge we call the Sandfolds. It is a desecrated wasteland, speaking well to this land's lack of hospitality. Here, the strength of many who survive the river journey finally fails. If only they could clamber further north, where lies the verdant Downside Prairie. A better place to perish, to be sure. Jomur Valley. The Downside Prairie first appears serene. It is not. The soil there accommodates only the region's brutish native vines and overbrush. The most likely food sources prove poisonous. Thus, we journeyed further north. The climate there grew fouler to my senses, though the Cur Jomur found it amenable. This sprawling valley, pocked with long evaporated lakes, gives evidence to the monstrosities which roamed this land. We found the region's western edge to be more pleasant on the whole. Therein we found sources of fresh water, whereas over to the east we found the edge of the land's most hideous decay. Flagging Hands. Beyond the valley lies the Flagging Hands, which could be called a swamp if an entire sea could merely be a lake. Soon after our arrival, several of us fell into a dark despair. Such were the environs. I found it rather fascinating, though. It held aspects reminiscent of the southern bogs we dwelt in as a tad. We grew accustomed to the dampness of the air and grew to savor certain twigs and beetles. It can be said the Flagging Hands are an acquired taste, recommendable only for those of our same bent, or perhaps the Downside's native imps. The sea surrounded the environs on 3 sides, appearing insurmountable at first. The Sea of Solace. Beyond a shallow, sickly gulf, our voyage grew increasingly forbidding and much harder to explain. How could a sea exist here at the bottom of the world? We could not deduce whence sprang the carcasses of ancient sailing ships we found throughout the Sea of Solace, though the warnings that they signified we duly noted. It was here we first met Oris, called the Underking, who brazenly assaulted our small skiff, for we had trespassed in his waters. But then the Underking relented, for he witnessed Solium Mur in all his doom and glory. Soon he would side with us. Then, with the Underking, we sailed forth into a tempest beyond reasoning or measure. Deathless Tempest. We waited for the deathless tempest to subside. We waited, but the Underking, he merely laughed and laughed, for the deathless tempest does not subside. What lies beneath that stretch of sea to cause such an upheaval is best left to myth and speculation. We made passage, nonetheless, through sorcerous aid and fortune, scarce seeing the surrounding environs. We did detect a landform to the west. Solium Mur detected there the presence of the treacherous aide who lured him into exile, and then followed him in turn. Mur, in his wisdom, thought it best to be avoided. At last did we arrive on distant lands, though seeing them provided little comfort. Black Basin. The continent we called Black Basin shall one day tear itself apart, arriving upon blackened, molten crags, tolerable only by the harp Triesta. We pressed onward toward a suffocating wood. This land felt to us somehow primordial. Deep in its roots and noxious crevasses lay innumerable clues as to its ancient history. But we had little time to excavate, for our supplies by then were thin. Further, we were lost. Our best attempts at circumnavigation all had failed. It was BlueSky who reached out at last onto the stars, and they revealed the way. Then we at last could see the sacred Mount Alaudiel, there in the distance. Mount Alaudiel. Gaining the summit of the sacred Mount Alaudiel involved no small amount of sacrifice and sorcery in varying proportion. The mountain's energies were palpable. The sensation that we felt, indescribable. The lands we stood upon were closer to the stars than to the world we knew. It was upon this highest point in all the downside that we first made effort to concoct this tome, which you now read. It was there that we were stricken with a vision of the cycle of the rites, and felt together, for the first, a sense of freedom unlike any we experienced before. But that is a subject which our comrades shall illuminate in greater detail. Thus ends Chapter 3. On to Chapter 4, Celestial Landmarks, pertaining to locales discovered to have cosmic significance. In the words of BlueSky in 100 Minds, the scholar. Do you feel a kinship with the stars? You owe your everything to them. Perhaps one day, even your freedom. I chased the stars across the river of my genealogy until they led me here. I demanded they explain to me the paradox of knowledge. For how is it that something can be shared, but still contained within ourselves in its entirety? The stars did not respond, but sent me on a quest. I sought the 9 landmarks, which they revealed to me, so that someday I would reveal their mysteries to you. These landmarks, emissaries of the stars, are 9 lenses through which we see the land and see ourselves in a new light. The Ridge of Goal. The serpent titan Gandroth turned to brittle stone not long after his death, of that you may be certain. What remains is a flat, elevated basin that stands us closer to the heavens. Upon the fallen Gandroth's hide, the stars themselves alight, and you shall know you stand on sacred ground. We set the metal sigils, lit the candle flames, and we emblazoned on the rock-like forms the sigil of our passage to and from this land. And then the stars themselves, they did reply to us. They sang, shining bright, their voices loud and clear. We understood their cadence, and we knew how often to return. The Spring of Jomur. I ofttimes think the carapace of the hive titan Biolanthius shall be an everlasting blemish on an almost splendid bit of land. But Jomur, in his brashness, felled the monster with a certain flair. Then the moon shone through the ridges of the massive carapace and shined upon the pooling ichor, turning it into the freshest nectar ever to be tasted. The spring shall flow eternally, and those who walk within it shall experience the resplendent glory of the land. The stars began to fall there in the spring with regularity, and we now know how soon again that they shall do so, and we wish for you to see it for yourself. The Cairn of Haub. How ironic that the shattered remnants of the bone titan Shaxx Six Shoulders, which once stood vigilant over the archway into flagging hands, remain now as forbidding as when the horrid monster still possessed unnatural life. After little Haup dispatched the bone titan in a feat of ingenuity, Shaxx's pieces fell onto the valley floor, forming a set of standing stones, which Haup marked. Further, traces of the titan's glacial blood coagulated into perfect frozen drops, which still shimmer in the darkness. Six Shoulders seems to start reanimating when the stars above him dance a certain way. Paint the sigil then in the shining light. The Pit of Melith. If there's one celestial landmark in which I would never again wish to tread, unless of course the stars beseeched me to, it has to be the pit. 'Twas dark in there beyond all reckoning. If not for Melith's sorceress lantern, all of us, we all would have been lost. What lies within the pit is not to be invoked. Although I have no doubt our goodly Underking shall be unable to prevent himself from boasting of how Melith sealed it there for an entire age. The thing yet lies there, on the edge of death. Through its connection to the stars, it gives the pit significance. Walk there with courage and a steady mind. The Hulk of Ores. The Das Raban was first of many river ships to vanish in the downside. Although presumptions of its loss were not inaccurate, the doomed ship and her valiant crew had charted half the Sea of Solace ere the end of their brave voyage. The sea titan, unfathomed Plorness, was not fond of vessels sullying her sea, and split the doomed ship with a single swipe. The ship's own shattered prow would later end the sea titan's cruel reign, as the boastful Underking loves to recount. The stars themselves must have been moved by this. That point within the sea, now sacred, has the stars dancing in homage every now and again. The Isle of Kaelmer. The traitor Kaelmer Ropecaller. Whereas he brought about our empire's fall, whereas he nearly claimed the life of our dear Solium, we forgive him. We have forgiven him. We give a certain thanks to him, for he has played a vital part in the stars' plan. If not for him, then we, the Eight, would never have aligned. We never found the Ropecaller. He fled into the sea, towards an isle which we knew well to avoid. 'Twas there, we think, that Kaelmer's tattered mantle finally did him in, among the wild imps. Should the stars ever converge above that isle, it shall be to signify that their long dance across the skies is drawing to a close. And indeed it did. The Nest of Triesta. The ashen effigy of the nightmare titan Zilvius Horse-Headed looms as dark as ever on the precipices of Black Basin, where her chaotic influence sundered the land itself until it wept with fire. The very instant that our graceful friend Triesta Tethys finally laid to rest the greater titan with the power of the holy scepter of the Empire, the stars shone down upon us all with blinding light. Triesta thought that she could bear her children in the warmth there, but alas. Now, the stars revisit that locale with regularity. The fissures in the rock do pose more danger than one ought invite, but a summons to the nest is to be honored. The Glade of Lu. Never have I witnessed an affront to nature, mine and everyone's, quite like the poisoned woods of limbless Arazek, the Root Titan, in his suffocating influence. I shall leave it to the boastful Underking to tell you more of Arazek's vanquishing, whilst I may tell you something of the glade that he protected, which became my own, for my own genealogy now occupies the soil there, and strives forevermore to prevent Arazek from taking root again. The brambles of the glade are constantly encroaching on themselves, then falling once again to dust. This miraculous cycle, reflected in the starlight piercing through the canopy, needs to be witnessed whenever the stars invite an audience. The Fall of Solium. From the top of Mount Elodiel, the downside may be seen in its entirety, or at least felt, since so much of the land is shrouded, but that is hardly all. Through a wondrous miracle, there lies upon this highest mountain an inverted fall, whose waters crash not toward the sea, but rush towards the heavens. We speculate these are the very waters which delivered us, but now bend backward, seeking their return, as do we all. In this phenomenon can freedom be achieved, but only for the chosen when the time is right. This is a path to freedom we cannot traverse, but shall leave open for you, so that you may strive for it. The Book of Rites. Much can be said about the Sisters of the Arch, whom we banished to the great beyond for deeds irredeemable. Suffice it that the details of their banishment are written in this book. The sisters and the book became inseparable, not unlike the stars, their light and the infinite darkness that engulfs them. The stars communicate to us, and you in turn. The words within this book are but an edifice, a simple surface. Look past the text, to the hidden meaning, to the hidden power. The stars above, as they are not mere lights, these are not mere words. If you chance upon the Sisters of the Arch within their prison here, give them our thanks. And that concludes Chapter 4. Chapter 5, The Greater Titans, of how the 8 scribes together defeated various monsters threatening the land. In the words of Under King Oris, the Sea Sojourner, "The stars shine strange beneath the sea. This one dared rise from the waters so that he could see them plain, the burning essences of those who came before. Our lives are but a quest to join the stars. This one longed to be the brightest, but in the downside, this one met those whose own stars shall doubtless burn at least as hot. Together, we achieved great deeds. You may have seen some evidence of it, the remains of the greater Titans, which once darkened this dark land. But in our kinship was the strength to conquer them. It is this one's humble charge to chronicle those deeds, and may the Titan stars never stain the sky during your time." Well, about that. They sure did enjoy staining some sky, in my experience. Endriga the Widow, though. The boundless sea of Solus and a blackened star are all of what remains of the blood titan Endriga. After this one's exile, he was joined by many of his bravest worm knights, who awakened the blood titan inadvertently whilst searching the downside's murky depths. Endriga was most displeased to see her hibernation end, and vowed to 4 ages of torment, on us and on our sea dominion. Our assault was grander than can be described, and lasted days and days and days. The noblest of worm knights fell upon her massive form as waves which dashed themselves against the rocks. Our resolve eventually exceeded hers, and she collapsed into the seas and disappeared. This one alone remained to tell of it. I do love me some worm knights. They're just very fun. Sung Gries. Know you the sacred Mount Elodiel, the highest peak within the lowest land? Then know that it is no mere mountain, but the fractured bonework of the world titan himself, the archbeast Sung Gries. This one's bog-dwelling companion Melith is too mild in her account of our ascent. 'Twas not a pleasant mountain hike, but a pitched battle spanning 17 full moons. Finally, the 8 of us, we climbed atop the brow of the old Sung Gries. We merged our strength and struck the mortal blow, such that the archbeast shattered finally to pieces. 'Tis no mere myth that from the archbeast's eye the shimmer pool emerged, the sole means of freedom from this land. Biolanthius. How very crafty of our muzzled friend Jomur, that one quite so diminutive as he did manage to prevail against the hive titan called Biolanthius. Despoiler of the valley, Biolanthius did fall at last into a deadly trap, which doubtless he deserved. Crushed under the weight of 16,000 tons of beetle dung he was, though how our Jomur gathered all this stuff, only to send it crashing down, he has refused to say. From the hive titan flowed a fresh, rejuvenating spring, which gladdens up that valley's desolation quite a bit. As for Jomur, why, he and his legendary jaw blade set a most impressive mark of valor, to which this one aspires. Impressive work, Jomur. Dolnis the Locket. I don't know if I've heard of this one. I don't know if we got this page. There have been several of these pages that I'm like, this doesn't seem familiar. I don't think we got this. And I don't even know if I've heard of Dolnis the Locket at any point. Doubtless you've seen Black Basin, whose seething fissures yet spew noxious flame and vapor at the stars. Then you have seen the remnants of the wrath of Dolnis, also called the Locket, for within himself he held the fires and the rage which shaped this very land. The Ash Titan, he did threaten to devour us as we delved deeper into the reaches of the downside, till we at last outsmarted him. Quenched his flames we did, when we lured an inauspicious storm his way. And so, whilst the Ash Titan has fled, the sopping coward, we can see his handiwork remains. The blackened crags forever shall bespeak the danger which he posed. Limbless Arazek. If this one is to be honest, he nary expected his high-minded friend Lou Sklorian ever to raise arms. And yet, 'twas Sklorian alone who toppled the Root Titan, which befouled the serenity of Waking Wood. Sklorian, he brought to bear the might of his entire family of willful saps, contained within his ancient, gnarled staff. Soon did the poisoned soil of limbless Arazek begin to dissipate. The Root Titan cried out a deafening last cry, and withered to a speck. Arazek yet lives, a husk, a single foul seed, still rotting where once something mighty stood. Sklorian, in his mercy, deigned that the surrounding woods ought to grow bold and strong by casting off the influence of Arazek, not by forgetting him. Lord Gandroth. A warrior of surpassing strength, that Golothanian. Single-handedly he slew the serpent titan Gandroth, which envenomed the downside prairie's verdant plains. Master General Golothanian, he was undeterred by Lord Gandroth's myriad attacks. His lashing tail, it hurled rocks the shape of swords and thrice as sharp. His eyes reduced brave folk to mewling babes. But Golothanian stood tall and brandished his tower shield and sent Lord Gandroth's fury back into his monstrous countenance. Now Lord Gandroth takes the shape of a stone ridge, conspicuous, and now as well you know the full unguarded truth about his fearsome past and Golothanian's glory. Unfathomed Plurnes. In all of this one's conquests, never has the Underking confronted such a foe as the Sea Titan, Plurnes. That grand and hideous wench presented nigh inestimable peril for whomever sailed or swam the downside sea. Tales of her monstrosity long spread across the world. The Underking was undeterred. Nay, this one made it his life's mission to give her recompense. Emboldened, having felled her cousin Indriga, he drew her out of hiding, and then sailed the remains of Dazraban, the doomed ship, with its sharpened prow, straight through her heart. Huzzah! The catastrophic detonation which ensued left no surviving witnesses, save one. The Underking survives to speak of it, and write of it, which he shall do, repeatedly. Now that I have had more time with the characters in this world and gotten a little bit more of an idea of who each of the scribes is, and also now that we're reading these sort of in order and it's easier to recognize the voice of each author of each chapter, I'm enjoying how much clear character and personality is baked into the text of each of these chapters. They are written quite differently. Not radically differently, but you can get a sense of different authorship in each one. It's really impressive. Anyhow, Time Singer Harn. The tempests ravaging the downside are the handiwork of the Time Singer Harn, known as the Sky Titan. The furious elements, they are his troubled dreams, manifesting in this troubled land. We, the Eight, we sought to cure him of his ailment, for his unrelenting and unpleasant dreams had long become our treacherous reality. One night, we drew him toward the Rite of Flame, a stratagem of Solium Mur's design. There, he was stricken by the stars and dazed and overcome by their eternal shining glory. The Sky Titan thus bonded with the sky. The tempests which remain, they are but lasting traces of his waking realm. Islach Astralborn. The foul name of the Star Titan is written here but once. Do not invoke it, lest you aid its reawakening. It sups upon despair and fear and doubt, and lands such as our own. 'Twas our mighty mistress Melith which tracked the astral-born monstrosity within its loathsome pit, where it lay nursing wounds sustained from traveling across the stars in search of simple prey. The wicked astral-born could drive a lesser creature to the brink of sanity with a mere passing glance, but not Melith. She cast upon the fiend 100 words of binding, each one more binding than the last. With the creature's incandescent skin, we bound this book, and bound ourselves unto the stars. Zilvius Horseheaded. Without warning, from the cinders and the seething rock that gushed forth from the sea and soil at the foot of Black Basin, rose the mare titan Zilvius. She broke the land beneath her burning hooves, whinnying vengeance upon those who thwarted Dolnis. We, the Eight, we were divided then, and blinded by the smoke and heat and thunder. But for the grace of Mother Triesta Tethys, all would have been lost. With unswerving concentration did Saint Triesta then invoke the old enchantments inscribed upon the holy scepter which she bore. The land burst into starlight, rendering Zilvius in twain. Her visage now strikes fear into the hearts of her foul kind, not ours. The Tattered Mantle. Well known is the treachery of the rope collar, who conspired against the Emperor of Sar and set in motion the Empire's collapse. The knave did journey to the downside after us. Our paths they never crossed, though he did meet his end. He wore the Tattered Mantle, wrought by the first Empress and worn in every generation hence. The living mantle whispered wisdom in its wearer's ear. But in the downside, it cried out instead in protest. When the rope collar retreated to his horrid isle far at sea, the mantle gained new life, conjoining with the native imps. The imp titan was born, and grasped then the rope collar in its first and last embrace. Shax's Six Shoulders. They fought a lot of titans, man. Much can be learned of bravery from the tale of Haub the Swallow, the imp who alone felled the muscular and altogether terrifying bone titan called Shax's Six Shoulders. Six Shoulders sat listless, his appalling frame refusing to be budged. None dared approach the withered fiend, whose plague had spread half across the valley floor. Undeterred, Haub sprang into action whilst we but watched. The little one, he flew into the gaping maw of Shax and lodged himself inside the monster's throat. Shax began then to cough and cough and cough until the valley shook. Six Shoulders breathed his last and fell. His putrid flesh then fizzled and was gone. Yet our imp friend remained. And that's the last of them. Such grand tales. But now for Chapter 6, Rites of Flame. The premise for a competition, which would test the worthy and return their freedom. In the words of Solium Mur, the last of his name. With these blackened nails do I hereby inscribe the rites of flame. The bylaws shall be written here in full. We, the Eight, decree the rites a test of one's true worth in body, mind, and spirit. Now, until the stars abandon us, this shall be binding law within the downside. Those deemed worthy in the rites are to regain their freedom from the downside and return from whence they came. Exiles shall conduct the rites as one of 9 triumvirates and look toward the stars for guidance on their path. Exiles shall bear this book as status. Essential structure. The essential structure of a rite shall be as follows. Where chosen by the stars, within the dark of night, shall 2 triumvirates stand in opposition, far enough afield beside their consecrated pyres, symbolizing their resolve. In each triumvirate, the 3 shall act as one, to demonstrate their trust in one another, not just in themselves. Triumvirates shall endeavor to extinguish the pyre of their adversary, whose flames are only to be staunched through a celestial orb descended from the stars. Whosoever pyre remains burning shall prevail. The triumvirates are to disperse. Searching the stars. We, the 8, have seen the turning of the stars from now until the ending of our age. Heed their guidance and ours. The stars take many cyclic turns. The rites commence at their behest upon celestial landmarks where the downside's greater titans fell before the heavens. Bearing this book bestowed on your triumvirate, you, the reader, shall perceive under which stars you are to congregate. Follow where they lead, as your adversaries shall. If either of you fails to appear, then neither of you walks the path. Whether you prevail or you fail, from that point the stars shall guide you on. Before each rite. The rite shall not commence unless the necessary preparations are complete at a celestial landmark ere the stars align. Exiles shall conduct the rites bearing this book, of which there are but 40 copies, each bound in astral hide. Exiles shall wear the sacred raiments fashioned in our likeness at the summit of Mount Elodiel. Their identities are to be concealed, for they shall represent us all. Exiles shall set a metal sigil for their pyre and consecrate the grounds using the words, "The 8 scribes gave their freedom so that we may yet have ours." The heavens shall respond when all is set. Law of 3. During the rite, each triumvirate shall act as one, unerringly and without question. The disobedient shall suffer banishment or permanent expulsion. Exiles shall move as of a single mind to demonstrate their faith and recognize that they, as we, the Eight, cannot prevail alone. Their worth shall be determined both by their actions and their peers. Triumvirates lacking experience in this may designate a reader whose focus on this book may help the others to coordinate. However, only those who shall conduct the rites firsthand shall walk the path toward enlightenment and become eligible to regain their freedom. The Burning Pyre. At the appointed time, at the aligning of the stars, the heavens shall rain down upon the ground sufficiently prepared, and thus the two opposing pyres shall be set ablaze. Thus shall commence the rite. Triumvirates are to protect their pyres as they would their lifeblood. Lifeblood itself is never to be shed, before, during, or after any rite, lest the disobeyer suffer permanent expulsion. Exile is injury enough. The rite is an act of mercy. Fear not the purifying flame. Plunge into it headlong and without fear, for you shall be protected by the stars themselves. Seek freedom in the flame. The Aura. Exiles bearing the raiments and this book reveal their hidden inner aura in the color of their flame. The aura is the exile's solitary weapon in the rites. Should one's adversary cross one's aura, the adversary shall be banished. Banishment is fleeting nonetheless. Seek the pyre's light and thus make your return. The exile's presence shapes the aura. Exiles gain greater auras whilst standing side by side with their triumvirates, for we gain strength together. Exiles may cast their aura through sheer force of focus on this book. The Celestial Orb. As the two flames are lit, so shall the celestial orb fall from the heavens. But one such orb shall be availed by the stars, requiring triumvirates to vie for it. Its cosmic connection to the flames, the raiments, and this book bestows the necessary qualities for its bearer to prevail. Effortlessly sails the orb between the three in a triumvirate. It seeks the grasp of whosoever acts among the three. Once grasped, the orb shall draw within it all the bearer's aura, fueled by the triumvirate's own flame. It is to be cast into the flame. The Path. In each rite, we gain enlightenment, whether we prevail or we fail. Indeed, through failure do we tend to learn the most valued lessons, provided we survive. None among us have prevailed without end. Exiles who walk the path toward enlightenment shall, at times, be struck by an epiphany and achieve mastery in some respect. Choose well among these blessings we bestow. Thus, you may yet achieve your potential and surpass your adversaries. Whenever you prevail, your triumvirate earns favor. In time, the triumvirate with the most favor shall be summoned to the liberation rite to earn a chance at freedom. Then, the cycle shall begin anew. Liberation. The liberation rite takes place upon the fall of Solium, under a blooded moon witnessed by the heralds from the stars. There, the most favored triumvirates shall confront the one which we appoint. These two triumvirates first shall pass through Scribe's Gate, where their worth shall be assessed under the stars. Only the most enlightened exiles within each triumvirate may be anointed for a chance at freedom. Two of their companions shall support them whilst they strive. The anointed champion of the triumvirate which prevails shall then plunge into the Shimmer Pool and return in glory. And thus concludes that chapter. Not many left. Chapter 7, 9 Triumvirates, about the founding principles of the exile groups who shall forever conduct the rites. In the words of Haub the Swallow, the Accursed. How do I read for an imp? Their voices, they just sort of make imp noises. I'll figure something out.
At first I found it much too difficult to read, much less to write, even to grasp the quill. But the horned one, Mur, implored me. He said this is the greatest gift that he could give me in return. In return for what? I asked. In return for his life, he said. But I did not save your life, I said. You did, he said. We fight about this still. Mur is stubborn, more than I. Now, herein, and by his leave, I chronicle the 9 triumvirates, for I am of this land, unlike the rest who wish to leave. We knew not everyone could leave who wanted. Seldom would the opportunity arise. Thus did we organize those striving for the chance into 9 sets of 3.
The Accusers.
The Accusers formed under Golathanian. He is a big man. He values justice, loyalty, steadfastness. Golathanian, he says that the Accusers take their names from one of his most accomplished legions, from his former military days. All among them, in fact, served the Master General at one time. They represent the stoutest-hearted people of the Empire, who held true to Myr and Golathanian to the end. The golden colors of their raiments are reminiscent of their old shining armor, is his claim. Ever shall they seek out those with the truest spirits and the strongest sense of purpose to replenish their ranks.
The Fate.
The Fate united under Manymane, the Alpha Chief. He is brash, but follows his traditions. He prizes faith, discipline, and honor. Qualities he seems to lack at first. He formed the Fate under the precepts of olden bylaws of his 4-legged ancestors. They believed in a certain natural order in the way of things. Manymane wanted for the Fate to likewise show respect. Initially, he only chose from other curs. He, however, urged the Fate to replenish their numbers from any race or ethnic group thus willing. Thus shall they anticipate what is to come, with open eyes and minds, and never frown upon what is in store for them.
The Dissidents.
I myself, Hawub, did form the Dissidents under this simple tenet: those who do not belong, belong. The other scribes, some of them showed at first a reluctance to allow an imp, and one accursed, to designate one of the 9 triumvirates, but Myr, the Horned One, stubborn as he was, stood by my side. In time, they came to understand, for I remained, as ever, at their side, a living bit of proof of their absurdity. The Dissidents are an extension of my oddity. Those who do not adhere, they're not to be discarded, underestimated, or dismissed. They are as necessary as are those against whom they rebel.
The Withdrawn.
The Withdrawn did spawn forth from the wild witch Melith, in whose vigilant pursuit of the unknown and the unknowable I always felt a certain kinship. Whether the Withdrawn were Melith's kin by blood or merely worshippers, we trusted one another not to ask or care. What mattered was that Melith chose the most audacious minds, who stopped at nothing short of the impossible. Though ever distant, the Withdrawn revealed to us such truths about the land which long lay hidden, even to one such as I. Their knowledge ever waking into newfound depths of consciousness, they lead us all to better know ourselves.
The Pyre Hearts.
The Pyre Hearts all follow in the path forged by the Under King Oris, whose many mighty deeds exceed the smallest stature that somehow contained him. His is the most spirited triumvirate, their courage unfaltering, their hearts full. They live always with vigor, and perhaps they die with it as well. They are the Under King's own kind, as at home above the sea as in it, never ceasing, ever longing as they do for something more. The Under King chose wisely for these qualities, and teaches that a life devoid of passion is a life devoid of life itself. That burning passion is the fuel that drives the Pyre Hearts, and in turn, us all.
I like that our experience of each of these triumvirates kind of matches these original intentions and what they represent. But the triumvirates are still defined by the people wearing the raiments, currently inhabiting it, and like what their goals and interests are. So like, even though they may aspire to these specific qualities, they may not necessarily accurately represent what Hawub is describing here. Like, that feels really true and real. It would just be so easy for these descriptions to more or less exactly match our experience of the characters in each of these triumvirates. And I love that they don't match perfectly. Like, you can see it, but the characters are still very much their own thing, and they don't 100% align with these values all the time. Feels very, like, organic and real. I like it. Anyway, the Essence.
The winged members of the Essence, each chosen by the matriarch Triesta Tethys, are living exemplars of liberty and piety. Would that my wings could be thus. Once, you of course must know, we all had wings. It is said that the people of the Empire relinquished theirs, drawn in by earthly matters as they were. But the harps, such as Triesta, held tight the liberty their plumage could afford. These divergent paths did cause a share of differences between the winged and the wingless over time, but here, in this land, our purposes are shared, our goals united. That, then, is the essence. That is who they are, and what, and why.
The Chastity.
Those bearing the name the Chastity all count themselves disciples of Glorian, the 100 Minds, known firstly for his wisdom, but also cherished for his modesty, integrity, and kinship. Sklorian's priority in forming his triumvirate was to instill in all his subjects a deep-seated deference and respect for the rules governing the liberation cycle. The cycle of the rites needs to be respected to be understood, and needs to be understood to be respected, Sklorian said. Thus, the Chastity are emissaries of the cycle. Should they earn back their liberty, then they shall spread enlightenment itself, and all of us shall grow.
See, yeah, like, the Chastity of today doesn't really match this almost at all. Which I like. Feels real. The Tempers.
Myr, the Horned One, formed the Tempers upon his own ideals. Ingrained in this triumvirate are basic truths about the dual roles of strength and gentleness. The Horned One, he's had a dualistic nature for as long as he and I considered each a friend. The stories I'm told about Myr's youth describe no one I know. All of us are capable of more. I once was an imp that could not write. Myr once was a man that could not think. The Tempers once were ordinary folk. Now they rise to greatness, always striving, never overreaching. They are not like Myr himself. Rather, they are what Myr wished he could be.
The Nightwings.
What is a life without an adversary? If not for forces that conspire against the will, life would be devoid of its innateness, the desire to overcome. Thus, when we, the 8, at last each fashioned a triumvirate based on our own ideals, we realized a void still needed to be filled, as the night sky needs moonlight. We 8 were united. Our triumvirates shared our affection. They needed us to set them all against a common foe. Thus did we form the Nightwings, a triumvirate envisioned to exceed them all, born through means mortal and divine, and given undue favor in each turning of the cycle. They are the adversary we all face.
That's neat. I honestly love that. Like, I hadn't found or read this page, I don't think, so hadn't really seen this, but I love that being the origin of us and why we are always in the liberation rite every time, guaranteed. It's because, like, we're the in the sports movie, we're the, like, rich kid villain team who has all the resources and the best stuff and has so many advantages that makes them win all the time for the underdogs to try to defeat. That's pretty great. The Beyonders. What?
To call the Beyonders a triumvirate is to stain the others' efforts. Yet I am beholden to describe them here. A pack of bandits, loosely organized under the Sisters of the Arch. They traveled all this way into my land to take the Horned One's life, to kill my friend, Myr.
Oh, this is Sandra's team. Sandra's team are like the spirits of these people, our little training buddies.
We thwarted them. We had them at our mercy. Mercy had become imperative to Myr. We spared their lives, but banished them to darkness, far beyond these lands. Now and forever, the Beyonders cling to a beholden duty to confront the true triumvirates, whenever they so choose, so that whenever the true triumvirates clash, it shall be to their fullest extent.
And that concludes Chapter 7. We're down to the last one, because, well, I guess then there's the Afterword and Glossary that we probably don't need to read all of, but Chapter 8, on Commonwealth. Principles of a truly free society formed on the basis of this book. In the words of Triesta Tethys, the Blessed Born. We, the 8, assembled here together in the downside, and we gave our freedom so that you may yet have yours. It is an exchange we have not lightly made. It is my charge to ensure that you, should you regain your freedom, first off recognize its qualities, and also use it wisely. You do not need a pair of wings in order to be free. My own wings, I once thought that they could take me anywhere, and then they took me here, where I'm bound. It is your charge to be free, and not to make the same mistakes. Spring from here, and learn from what we did, and build a new and great society, a free society, with wings spread wide for everyone. On mercy. Mercy is the beating heart of a truly free society. Mercy, even for the perpetrators of the darkest deeds. As our liege Solium Mur drifted in an ocean of regret, he found there mercy, or rather, it found him, and it saved his life. Mercy, freedom, they are intertwined. A society which raises a clenched fist against its own shall follow the doomed path of the Empire of Sar. Ours shall be a merciful society. May the perpetrators of the darkest deeds be sent to join us here, where they may learn, as we have. Mercy shall engender union among all our different kind. We shall stand shoulder to shoulder, equals in the same society. On kinship. Each one of us within the 8, besides the imp Haob, we would have perished in the downside had we not found each other and together formed our union. Here, in the downside, all are bound. But that which binds us here does have some latitude. We chose the bond of kinship. Our exile took precedence over our differences. The Empire, which had subjugated all our kind into a tense alliance, shall give way to a society in which our differences are paramount. There, may you embrace your ancient cultures, whilst jointly forming a great culture all its own. Next to mercy, it is kinship that shall form the bedrock of our commonwealth. On worth. The fallen Empire of Sar was ruled according to an ancient bloodline thought to be infallible. Our society shall instead be by those who earned the privilege. We, the 8, we cannot bear the burden of determining your worth. It shall be determined by your peers, and by you yourself. We shall provide a framing through the rites to put you to the test against yourselves, against your kin, against your adversaries. The downside cannot let us all go free. Thus, freedom to the worthy. As the worthy, your true calling then begins, as you return to a society which longs to learn the wisdom you have gained along your path. The worthy shall lead. On history. This book cannot accompany you if you should earn your freedom. It is to remain here for your successors, for it is bound together inextricably with us. There is no sorcery, however, to prohibit you from spreading forth its teachings. We charge you to go forth and share what you've learned along your path. Reveal not the rites themselves, nor the existence of this book. Transcend its bounded limitations, for it cannot be transcribed. Any such attempts shall fail. Beware of those who would dare to read it on the other side. Under their guise of seeking wisdom may yet lurk a much darker desire, to undo that which we strive to do. On legacy. Reader, though you shall always bear a burden, it is much lighter than the burden of a lonesome exile. Go forth and become free. Then join with the others such as you and lead with mercy, continuing to demonstrate your worth and knowing that the Empire's fall formed the foundation of our commonwealth. You shall cease to be a reader and become a voice both to the free and to your successors here, who shall take up this book when you no longer need it. The cycle of the rites shall see to it that you, and others like you, shall be liberated ere the coming of another age. May the stars shine ever brightly on us all. And that is the end of Chapter 8 and of the Book of Rites. I guess we do have an afterword here, though. Let's see to that. As an exile of the downside, as reader of this book, and as conductor of the rites, you are engaged now in a cycle which has lasted since the dawn of this age. Here, within this part of the book, is offered summary of all key figures, locales, terms, and astral phenomena you shall encounter, either firsthand or in passing on your path. To know the history of the downside and the rites is to prepare yourself to walk the path toward enlightenment, and then to liberty itself. Should you be free again, remember, reveal not the rites themselves, nor the existence of this book. Noted. Okay, we've been going for a bit here. This is already quite long. So I'm going to, real quick, start skimming through this glossary and terms section. And if I spot anything particularly interesting or noteworthy, we will read it. Sound good? Okay. Ooh, this might be an interesting one to read. 8 scribes. Gul Gulathanian, known as the Master General and the Nomad Scribe. He wields the legendary Tower Shield, Oath Taker. Haob the Swallow, known as the Accursed, and the Imp Scribe. He possesses the legendary Wings of Misfortune. Jomur Manymane, known the Alpha Chief and the Cur Scribe. He wields the legendary Jawblade, Kneebender. BlueSky, known as 100 Minds and the Sap Scribe. He wields the legendary staff, the Genealogy of Sklorian. And, no, there's another page here. Book. How do you pull up the rest of the page? Huh. I have no idea. Like these, the shoulder buttons take you to the next page. Y just opens and closes this one. A does nothing, X does nothing. No, come back here. That turns the page. Huh. I'm sure there's some way to... I'm sure there's some way to make this text easier to read for the other side. But not that I can figure. That's very silly. Ah, well, whatever. Molten Malith, known as the Wild Witch and the Crone Scribe. She wields the legendary lantern, Flame of the First Hag. Solium Mur, known as the Last of His Name, and the Demon Scribe. He possesses the legendary Black Nails of the Fallen Emperor. Triesta Tethys, known as the Blessed Born and the Harp Scribe. She wields the Holy Scepter of the Saurian Empire. Under King Ores, known as the Sea Sojourner, and the Worm Scribe. He wears the legendary Bladed Mail, Silverfish. Okay, back to scanning. Ooh, this one's also pretty different. Olden stars, basically all the stars that are not named after one of the great titans or one of the other things. Yeah. Kind of a shame I can't... It's so weird, such a weird UX oversight. Whatever. Aqueth, the star of the Songfisher. Those born under it are well-cultured and influential. Arche, the star of the Sandrunner. Those born under it are adventurous and outgoing. Capriast, the star of the Moonstag Hunter. Those born under it are ambitious, though also discontented. Cassius, the star of the Seventh Jester. Those born under it are complicated. That's a fun horoscope. Lenoriel, the star of the Silver Spear. Those born under it are devoted and faithful. Librecht, the star of the Black Saddle. Those born under it are skilled negotiators. Geminian, the star of the First Empress, or Geminian, your pick. Those born under it seek knowledge and new experiences. Pyre, the star of the Wooded Watcher. Those born under it are mysterious and alluring. Sagittol, the star of the Whistling Prince. Those born under it possess a natural exuberance. Scorpus, the star of the Old Cutter. Those born under it are wiser than most. Torvend, the star of the Great Oarsman. Those born under it are cool, calm, and collected. And Virdan, the star of the Broken Bowyer. Those born under it are steadfast or narrow-minded. Let's see, anything else? Nope, this is the last page. No more page flips, we've done it. We have read the entire dang book. I hope you have enjoyed. My voice is definitely tired, so I'm ready to wrap it up. Thank you all very much again for watching this playthrough. I hope you've enjoyed that and this reading. Thank you again to our patrons for selecting this game, finally getting it through. And also for selecting the next game, which will start soon. Maybe next week, maybe a little bit later. Depends on how much of a break I need. But I'm very excited for it. I'll see you soon for that. Take care, everyone. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.